Good afternoon, high performers. Woo, woo, woo. It's Friday. It's Valentine's Day, which means lots of things, different things to different people. Hope you guys have had a good week. I'd like to just send a warm welcome to Adriana Monique Alvarez. And I am going to read your bio because it's long, because you're so impressive. Okay. Adriana is the founder of AMA Publishing. She has worked with over 1,200 women in 36 countries and has been featured on Forbes, Huffington Post, International Living, Addicted to Success, Elephant Journal, Fox, ABC, and NBC. She's the author of 4 books, including the international best-selling book, She Made It Happen. She's a rich witch, divine channel, and passionate about creating platforms for powerful women to share their story and create a business they love. She lives in New Orleans with her husband, Derek, and sons, Sam and Grant. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're so welcome. I just want to say too, Adriana is the publisher of the multi-author book that just came out end of January. I guess it was like 2 weeks ago. Doesn't seem like, yeah.
It's like a time warp this time of year.
Totally. And rose to Amazon bestseller in, was it even 48 hours?
No, it was pretty fast. Maybe 24.
Yeah, that was a crazy ride. And honestly, some of those stories in there it's an amazing collection of women's stories, all kinds of different stories too, about our lives and things we've gone through. It was a really fantastic opportunity.
I'm so glad you said yes.
Thank you. It was interesting to write. Painful and freeing.
Yes.
So I asked Adriana to join us because, and what spurred my invitation to you is, well, first of all, I just adore you. And I love how open you are about everything. And I love how supportive you are, no matter what, of women in business and women in their lives too, because they're the same thing, right?
Yes.
So I apologize for like the black spot in my eye. I'm having connectivity issues in my office. But you made a post about being put down, being told as a woman, business owner, also just a woman, like, are you told you're too much? Are you told you're too successful? And one line that I remember in your post was that you were getting you've gotten some feedback that you are emasculating your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And is that because your husband stays home with your children?
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Derek and we started our business together 10 years ago, and I'm always the face of the business. You know, I was either the one going out and networking when we were local and offline. And since being online, you know, I'm the one that everyone sees. And Derek does a lot of the, you know, behind the scenes work, the tech work, and he shoulders most of the boys and the home. And like, he's an excellent manager of all these things. You know, I'm good at doing this. Like, hey, you know, let's get to know each other. How can we solve a problem? How can we do this? And he's good at managing all of this. And it's interesting because, yeah, it comes up a lot, right? And of course, I mean, we're going to be totally honest on this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So I've never had a woman tell me that who was making a lot of money, right? So it's always sort of like that red flag when this comes up. She's not making a lot of money. And probably because she's afraid that the same thing will be said of her, right? Yeah. Or afraid that her husband might be feel threatened by it. And the interesting thing is this, is every time this happens, I go and talk to Derek, right? We've had a million talks. We've been in business for 10 years. We've been married for 12. And I say, does this make you feel this way? And he's like, no. I wish you would make more.
I got big plans for us next year, honey.
Exactly. We have this running joke that a summer of Derek means that he's sitting on the beach all summer with the boys, and he's like, yeah, not in the least, this just comes back down to like, most of us didn't have that example growing up, right?
No,
we didn't have that example.
No, God, no.
Our grandmas weren't making more money than our grandpas, right? It just wasn't happening.
No.
So all of a sudden we're confronted with this new thing. And no matter how modern and cutting edge and spiritual and forward thinking we think we are, when it confronts what grandma and mom and aunt and cousin did, we start realizing how ingrained it is. It's just like anytime I've said something and I go, oh my God, my mother just flew out of my mouth. And it's that realization that, all of this stuff is within me. And if I'm not super aware and conscious about what I want to do differently, we repeat. We just go on repeat.
Yeah. I always tell people it's the dance we know.
It is the dance we know.
Yeah. It might not be what we want, but it's familiar and our brains are like, yeah.
It is the truth. There's something so comforting about the familiar, and it's like you said, if I know this, that's better than this possible way that is unknown, right?
Yeah.
Because unknown is really scary.
Very. And our brains really, and our bodies too, we really resist it. It's a risk. Yeah.
It's a risk. It's so risky. And when people tell me like in my body, I'm feeling uncomfortable, so it must mean it's the wrong thing. And I go, no, not necessarily, right? Because our bodies, like you said, it's not just our brains. Our bodies are like, let's go with that route that's going to keep us alive, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like inside. Like this, we feel like we can survive. We can stay alive. This over here, we're not sure.
Yeah, totally. Hi, Sandra. How are you? So when was the first time? So you've been in business for 10 years and you recently took your business to all online, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a transition for you guys. And you've done kind of the nomadic thing as well.
Yeah, we decided to do something crazy. We did having 2 babies in 12 months, going nomadic and traveling the world full time, and transitioning from an offline business online all at the same time. I don't recommend it. Don't do that.
Why not?
Well, I will say this, it depends on your personality type, right? So some people, when it comes to like sink or swim moments, they swim. Yeah. But not everyone can handle pressure, right? But Derek and I have talked about this many times, how were we able to go from like doing really well offline to doing really well online? It was because we had no other choice. It's a huge transition. We've been talking about this recently, like what worked for us locally and online and working with brick and mortar. None of those methods worked online. And it's really hard to drop what you know and what's brought you success in the past. And had I still had the opportunity to network every week in San Diego and go have lunch and do all my offline stuff, I know I wouldn't have taken off online. I had no choice. That it was the only way. And so, yeah, making that transition in 3 things at once, it really it's one of those times you figure out what you're made of. Definitely.
Uh-huh. Did you go to coaching or were you coaching before?
No. So the first 7 years of our business, it was all done for you services. We created websites. I didn't create any of that, right? I sold it. But Derek and the whole team, they did websites, SEO, email marketing. So back when that was really cutting edge for brick and mortar businesses, that's what we were offering. And we were all in-house. So they had everything done in one spot. And when I had babies, I said, sorry, I can't go have breakfast with every single person in town and go step in everyone's business and see how their campaigns are going. And so that was when I held my very first Zoom call and said, I'm going to switch to consulting. I'm going to tell you what to do, and you got to go do it or hire the team who helps you implement it. And so I took all of this. I mean, we had hundreds of clients, and I said, we'll meet on Zoom once a week. That was it. I went to one Tuesday morning meeting at 9 a.m. And that's where I went because I had 2 babies in my arms.
Mm-hmm. And how did that go? How was that? Because most people now don't even really know what Zoom is.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, it completely pissed off the local clientele, right? Number one, we hit some resistance because all of our clients were baby boomers, and we did that by design because I grew up in my parents' businesses. I knew the challenges of baby boomers. I knew them inside and out. The problem is that all of our clients were older than us, and we were doing something that they didn't feel like we had earned our way to. But you haven't earned that. You get to do that. You get to travel the world when you retire, right? And so it was really hard for them to be okay with the fact that they were older and they hadn't given themselves permission to maybe do those things, right? Mm-hmm. You do that when you turn 65. So that was the very first challenge. The second challenge is that they didn't want to meet on Zoom. They wanted to go meet at our favorite coffee shop like we had done for years and years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was habit.
Sure. So what'd you do?
So we literally said goodbye to a client base of hundreds of people, and we started from scratch.
So you just did it?
I just did it.
Wow. That's amazing. It is so important. It's interesting, twofold, right? Like you got criticism, you got pushback. You could have just said, okay, we'll just keep doing it the way we've been doing it. But you didn't, because you had a bigger vision and you and your husband had a bigger vision for what you wanted your lives to be. And that takes a lot of courage. It really does.
It does. There's nothing, the truth of the matter is, like, when you have to be the hero in your own life, in your own business, when we see Hollywood portray this, it feels very like, but when you're going through it, it's anything but that. It's just straight scary. And I remember, Derek and I looking at each other in Mexico. We had just moved to Mexico, and we were sitting in a restaurant, and we had just told everybody, if you're not okay with this transition, we understand, but it's over, right? And we had 0 clients, and we knew that we didn't have any more money coming in. And we had 2 little babies, and we had just moved to Mexico. And I remember saying, the real mark of an entrepreneur is not just in what you can create, but what you can create when you've lost it all, or when you've scrapped it all, when you're back at square one. As an entrepreneurs, we have to understand, like, we have the capacity to create at all times. That's our superpower. We can go from, like, how many times have you heard somebody say, like, I lost all my money in a bad deal or in a real estate downturn, and then I remembered I could do it again.
Because I did it once.
If I did it once, I could do it again, right? And we just made that decision. We're going to do it again.
And you did.
We did.
So let me just say hi to Eleanor. Hi, Eleanor. Sandra said, so good, loving this. Ooh, Sandra does EFT tapping.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, awesome. She has her own Facebook group, and she teaches people how to do that. And she said, I needed to hear that about our bodies, telling us a message of being unsafe and that it can be an opportunity to grow. So it's so true. So I wanted to talk, about being, like, basically, I've experienced this too, losing friends, being kind of censored, being as women, right? And you mentioned that usually you get this feedback from women who are actually not, they're struggling to make it. Can you just share maybe an experience that you had with that and how you dealt with it?
Well, the thing that I learned, what I'm realizing now is that high school was good preparation for right now. It's not all that different. Yeah. And so the truth of the matter is that I was raised by two parents who figured out what they were good at in life very young. So they had me at 19. They had to grow up and get their act together. And my parents had two successful businesses at a really young age. So my parents were making a lot of money. They had the nice house, they had the nice cars, we always had the nice clothes, we went on vacation. And we lived in a tiny, tiny town where most people, it's the poorest county in Colorado. So there was great contrast there, right? And so I grew up, today's Valentine's Day. And the very first experience that I had of knowing that I was different was in the 4th or 5th grade. It was Valentine's Day and everybody's exchanging Valentines. And one little girl stood up and said, nobody give her a Valentine, right? So I went by Monique. My parents have always called me Monique. And she said, don't give Monique a Valentine. Her parents are rich enough to buy her one. Don't give her one. And I remember this feeling of all the eyes were on me. And I realized I'm different than them. And that's how I'm being perceived. And I'm being punished for it. I'm being shamed for it. And that's okay. That was sort of the pattern, my whole upbringing. I got to high school and it was more of the same. My parents bought me a Mustang when I turned 16. It got keyed every week at high school. People would run into it just for shits and giggles. And I realized that when you have nice things, or when your family does well, or when you shine a little bit brighter, or you're a little too skinny, or you're a little too tall, or you're a little too pretty, or you have a little too much, people are going to find a way to try to knock you down. And I grew up a lot with this. What I heard from everyone my whole life is don't get too big for your britches, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's my hometown really drilled in me. When people ask me like, why don't you have a love for your hometown? Why don't you go back to where you're from? Well, that's where I came from, right? That's not going to work for me. And so coming into business, what I found is it's very similar. Basically, when women get into my inbox or comment on a thing, in one way or another, what they're saying is don't get too big for your britches. Or, what you're doing is one of the favorites that likes to come up. If you're successful in your business, I hear this a lot, you must be neglecting your children. You must be a bad mother.
You hear that?
Oh, on the regular.
Really?
Yeah.
Like people just send you DMs saying that?
Oh, yes. Or it'll come up in comments. And it's really interesting because here's the thing. As a woman, we know that hurts, right?
Yes. Because you already have guilt probably.
Right. It's like.
It comes with having kids.
Exactly. You're always thinking like, am I doing the best for them? As a mother, once you become a mother, it's like you live, eat, and breathe your children. And it's like you're so connected to them and you want the best for them. And when we receive this feedback from women, that is like, that's the sucker punch, right?
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that it's completely good and acceptable, right? So let's just back up. If my husband was a doctor, an attorney, or whatever, and everyone's looking in on our family, what would they say? He's a good husband. He's a good father. He's a good provider, right?
Yeah.
But nobody has ever told me that. Oh, you have a successful business. You are a good mother. You are a good wife. You are a good provider. It doesn't work the same direction for us.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to change. And the way we change it is when we see another woman doing this, we tell her that you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
And you, I have to say, you are such a cheerleader in just such an authentic you way. Like I remember when the book was about to be released and I was so freaked out because, I was talking about when I had an abortion when I was 27. And it was the most painful, difficult experience. And I sent you this voice message, and I was sharing with you, I'm freaked out. I don't know, I shouldn't have done this. And you shared with me that you were getting these messages from other women who were in the book. And you were so kind and just held that space for me. And I don't know where you were, but I don't know, like you were out to dinner or something. There was like music and stuff, and you showed up for me. And that is huge. Showing up for other women, no matter what, and saying, what you said to me was basically like, oh, it's okay. I hear you. But people need to hear what you have to say. And it's going to be okay. And the way that you feel is normal. And that just made me feel so much better. There was no judgment. And we judge each other so harshly sometimes. And we need women like you who are doing it, first of all, and you're not apologizing for it. And, you know, a lot of people, because you only work with women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
and
actually, I just had a man get on a call and say, I know you don't work with us, but would you please?
That's another thing. Do you get any blowback about that at all?
Oh, I did in the beginning. Yeah. So that is one thing that I didn't mention when we lost all our clientele when we moved to Mexico. There was one man who had been a client who decided that he was really going to go on that run. And he said, not only are you doing this, you're going to travel the world at your age, and you're going to work online. Like that felt like a very weird thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, but you're transitioning to only working with women. And he actually wrote a blog post about it, and he spread it all over social media. And
online.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly. And he basically said, yeah, I mean, he highly criticized it. And after that and the initial shockwaves of that, it never happened again. And I think partially because I didn't back down, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say, you know what, this is all inclusive, because here's the truth of the matter. Here's what most of us don't want to really admit, but it's the truth, is that every business gets to choose who they do business with. And every business has to market to those that they want to do business with. No business is for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And I run my own business. I get to say I only work with a certain group of people. I get to say you only work with me if you pay this amount, or you only, you fit these certain criteria. But it's really hard. It's a hard pill to swallow for people who, don't like the parameters that you've set up. But there are ours to set up as a businesswoman.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, that's what actually led to the most recent, the most recent storm we went through. As I had someone contact me and tell me how I was going to run a particular program, and that I was going to include some of her friends and make sure that they made money off of it. And it was a very elaborate thing. And I just said, no, it's not happening. It's not happening. You don't have a say in my programs. I'm not including your friends in it. They're not making sure that they make money from it. And I said no. And it was a real clear, solid no. And it blew up. Yeah, she lost it. But it kind of, you said this post recently, boundaries are so incredibly key. And we might feel like there's times that we were punished and we receive backlash for boundaries, mm-hmm. but they are worth having, like, no matter what. They're so essential.
There's so much, there's this connection, right, with being a woman and just sort of we like this expectation that we need to say yes to everything.
Oh, yes.
That we need to be everything to everybody. And I think women in business in particular, because there's so much to hold, right? Family and your clients and taking care of ourselves and asking, selling, all of that none of it feels, I think this goes back to what you were saying in the beginning of our conversation. It's not the dance we know.
It is not.
It's like you're, I don't know what the antithesis of that would be, but it's like the opposite of everything we've been taught and socialized to be. And then when you see women doing it, because I don't know this for sure, but do you mostly get like blowback from other women, or do you ever get it from men?
Never from men. No, 100%.
Yes. So interesting. We can't it's just, I lost my train of thought here for a second, but it's like we want to kind of keep each other smaller because it's just so scary and unfamiliar.
Oh, yes. Because then I have to look at where I'm not willing to change behavior from what my mom, grandma, and aunts did, right? So like you said, the dance I know. I can tell you what I witnessed growing up. I witnessed my mom accommodating to everyone. I witnessed my grandmothers doing that, right? I mean, just on a tiny scale, right? I mean, just think about any holiday you ever celebrated with your family. Who was doing all the work, right? Who was on their feet all day? Who was making sure that there was pickles for him and mashed potatoes for him and roast beef for him, right? Like, that's what I grew up in. I mean, on my mom's side, a Hispanic family, and then my dad's side, it was a mainly Mormon family. Like, talk about, like, you bend over backwards to keep everybody happy. And when you're a woman who says, actually, I don't do that, I'm going to make me happy, and wherever you fall, it's like the ground shakes and people are like, what did you just say?
Yeah. Yeah. I did a post over the holidays about that. The boys sit in my family. They sit in the family room and they don't move unless they're getting up to get a snack. And my mom and I are in the kitchen all day long. Oh, one thing that men do in my family is one of them gets to cut the roast. Or what?
Oh, yes. And same thing with the kids, right? I never saw any of the women in my family ask their husbands for help with like any of the day-to-day stuff, right? Like, was there a man in my family who knew how to put the kids down for a nap or run their bath or, get them ready for school? No. And it was, I mean, honestly, it was because no woman ever stepped in and said, would you do that? Like, are we both responsible for this? It was just taken on.
Yeah.
And I come from a long line of women who don't ask for help.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
We're changing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. Because we end up very tired and unfulfilled and exhausted. And it's hard to set. It's hard, it's easy to say, right? It's easy to set a boundary. It's much more difficult and requires a internal sort of self-love, really, to enforce it 100%. Because people will push.
Let's see if you really meant that, right?
Yeah.
Let's see if you really meant that.
Yeah. So when you get like these DMs or you get comments, how do you handle them?
To be honest, in the beginning, I used to explain myself. Yeah, I did. I used to explain, I used to justify, I used to think, oh my gosh, there's been a misunderstanding here. Let me correct this. And then I realized there's probably not a misunderstanding. And there's probably not going to be a change of heart, right? It's just someone simply wanting to state their opinion. And it really went back to that whole people pleaser, right? I was raised in that, right? Like, oh my goodness. It was that realization that why am I responding? Because I want them to like me. I want to change their mind, right? But that's rarely the case. Like most of the time when people don't like us, we're not going to change their mind because it's rarely to do with us. It's something that is bringing up all this other stuff within them. And so I just got to the place where I don't respond, right? Because for every minute and every bit of energy that I'm putting in that direction, I'm not supporting women who are going for it, who are being brave, who are doing a new dance. Yeah.
Yes, so true. It takes your energy away from being able to fulfill your own mission.
Yes.
Yes. And you're getting stronger when it doesn't affect you as much.
It is so true. It is.
It doesn't like feel like a punch in the gut. It doesn't feel like a personal attack.
Oh, yes. Because I remember when it would make me feel sick to my stomach. I would feel like I needed to throw up. It was just, I had such an immediate physical reaction to it. And it definitely, it lessens and it changes. And you learn how to navigate it, and you learn that you don't have, this is where it was really hard in the beginning, is it really wasn't about what they said. It was about the hardest part was what I began to question about myself as a result of their input.
Yeah, that's so painful.
That's really where it hurts. Someone else's opinion is only so much, but then when I allow that to make me question who I am, and then here we go. That's a real slippery slope.
Yeah, and it opens up so many like loops in your head that really can never get closed unless you give into it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
Okay, I'll just get a little smaller. I'll just go away. I'll just get quieter. And when
if I just do this instead of that, this won't happen as much, right?
Yeah. And I think it's really challenging too, because like you were talking about before, we don't have a lot of role models to look at. I mean, I know like my grandmother was a secretary in a school. Once her kids got older, she stayed at home with them. My other grandmother never worked outside the home. My mom was a teacher and went back to work after we got older. It's just not the norm to be a woman and work your ass off. It's just not.
It's not.
It's not.
Ooh, and you know what thing I found that really, I don't know if there's anything more to discuss than women making money, women being ambitious, women really going for what they want. It's like, oh, wait a second, right? That must mean a whole bunch of things. And it's always very interesting because for some people who are a little bit closer on the inside or who have spent time with us and see like how much time we have with our kids or what our lifestyle actually looks like, they're shocked because they're like, in their mind, they saw it so differently, And I think that as mothers, we figure everything out. And we can figure out how to have a successful business and how to have time with our kids and how to have a great marriage. But it's not going to look like an old model.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
What does it look like for you?
What it looks like for us is Derek and I have like very focused time of work. So we can get more done in 3 to 4 hours than most people can, in in a month, we like to say, because it's highly focused. It's all money-making activities.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. It's all we care about. We sit down and we talk, what are our money-making activities? There might be a few things on the to-do list that are kind of what I call nonsense, but it has to get done. Like, oh, we got to email so-and-so, we got to correct that thing or whatever it is, or we have this tech issue. But we dedicate 80% of our time to money-making activities. And we do chunks of time that are high intensity, get things done. So 3 to 4 hours of that. And then it opens up so much space after that, right? And so what we find is if we do that and then we have lunch together, or we go for a walk, or we go play Legos for a couple of hours or whatever it is, it allows this dip, this downtime, so then we can actually, our mind is automatically coming to new solutions, new ideas, you know? So this is sort of the rhythm that we do. It's not like a typical work day. And then when we're just not feeling it, then we leave the office, we leave the house, and we go do something entirely different. Because we have figured out that just by sitting in the office and trying harder, it doesn't work. It just really doesn't work for us. So we learned this early on. We were living in San Diego. I remember we had this, I can't remember, I couldn't tell you what it was, but it felt like a really big deal at the time. We had this huge problem. And this client, we had to figure out a solution for this client. And we were just racking our brain, and we were, we were stressing out. It wasn't coming together. And I said, let's go to Horton Plaza. Let's go walk around the shops. Let's go get something to eat. Let's go watch a movie. And in the middle of the movie, I go, I got it. And it was actually, a solution that we implemented in like an hour. So we've learned to just do that.
That's totally how your brain works, though. And you figured that out. When you actually stop thinking about something, because you can really only think about something for about 20 minutes. When you stop and let your brain, or let yourself imagine, just go do something different, that always happens. But we try so hard. And I hear a lot of women saying, I'm just like grinding. I'm working all the time. I'm thinking about work all the time. I'm not getting the clients. And actually, that's why. That's one of the reasons why. And that's really hard to get to wrap your brain around too. That what? Because we're supposed to be grinding and working all the time.
And I think we have it really drilled into us that if we try harder, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's counterintuitive. It's the opposite, right? I'm just going to let this go. I'm going to literally let it go. I'm going to go distract myself and do something entirely different and trust that it's going to come to me. And I think that another thing that I learned is I had this record playing in my mind that, if I was really good at what I did, like I could figure it out if I just stayed on it, if I just dedicated the whole day to it. I mean, I've had clients that will message me and say, I've been working on a Facebook post for the last 3 hours. And I'm like, oh, hold on. No, it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that hard. Go have fun with your kids, go get out in nature. And then you will know what's yours to say, and you can say it very easily and quickly. And so when it starts to feel hard, it's just that signal saying, drop it.
Yeah.
And go enjoy life. Go recognize something outside of this little hole you've got yourself in.
Yeah.
Let it come together.
And I think the same can be said when you're feeling you're getting some weird vibes from people, or you're getting you're starting to feel some pushback on something, just walk away from it, get a different view. I think actually what you do now, as far as just ignoring, is a good strategy because like you said, you're not going to change their mind. And really, it's way more about them than it is about you.
Yep.
And really spend your energy aligning yourself with people who you can help, people who have the same sort of vision, goals, authenticity as you. And I mean, there are like millions of people in the world.
Exactly. I mean, with all the people in the world, you think that there aren't a lot of people that align to us. There's so many, right? There's so many. And it's like, as soon as you can focus on that, you know, I want to tell you an interesting story that actually just happened yesterday. So what I've learned is if I just like do this whole distraction thing and even just like have a change of scenery, right? It's a really cool thing for me. And I oftentimes do this also when there's a bunch of invoices out and I'm like wanting some to shake through, right? So
yeah.
I'll just go do something different, you know, stop thinking about it. Stop, like, you know, it's like when you stare at the pot, it never boils.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday I decided to walk down my favorite street and go to this coffee shop I like. And I ordered a chai and I sit down and I'm sitting at this seat and there's a chair across from me and one on this side. My purse is on this one. They're metal chairs and nothing is happening. Nobody's walking, nobody's moving. And I'm sitting there and I'm taking a drink. And just, you know, when you just kind of see something out of the corner of your eye, I see something out of the corner of my eye and then I hear this little ding, you know, metal on metal. And I look down and there's a nickel sitting on the chair. And I'm looking around. I'm like, nobody's here. I'm just drinking my tea. Where did this come from? It was like a nickel just fell out of the sky and lands on my chair. And what I mean, I've never experienced this. I mean, a lot of you know, like I find pennies and dimes. I find dollars. Like even when we were living in San Diego downtown, I would find dollars all the time, which is really rare because there's plenty of people who would scoop those up.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've actually seen a coin come down, like literally out. I have no idea out of where. And it was that realization that we live, is that reminder that we live in a world of like infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
That there are things that happen beyond what we can explain. There's connections, there's resources, there's ideas, there's everything that we need is right here. And sometimes we just got to get out of our regular routine and be reminded miracles happen every day.
Yeah.
Cool things, including nickels, can pop into your life just like that.
So true.
It was
I
amazing.
still want to know where did that come from?
I know. I called Derek. I was like, you're not gonna believe this. Yeah, I have it right here behind. Yeah.
Like you saw it drop?
I literally, just like, you know, just on the corner of your eye, I saw something and I hear a ding and I just thought, I mean, I'm in a coffee shop,
wow.
right?
Yeah. Wow.
But
did some of your invoices get paid after that? You start hearing your PayPal go off?
Actually, it's funny you should say that. One invoice did come through, and then I sent out actually 3 more today, and I was just like, I tell you how I was sending those invoices out with a whole different point of view because I was just like, yeah, I feel like this is go time, babies.
That's awesome. I love that. You know, it's so important to focus on the abundance because it is everywhere, and focus on the people who support you because they are everywhere. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And, you know, really be there for them and they will be there for you. Absolutely. And reach out. Like when I reached out to you and said, oh man, I don't know if I should have told this story. And nothing's happened. It's been fine. I actually have met an amazing woman. She's in this group, Heather. She's an awesome photographer in New York City. And she works with women to help them find really their like raw power. And we're friends now, and we're gonna hang out this spring. And I'm gonna go see her in New York City. So, wow. If I wouldn't have written that, I wouldn't have met her. Because another friend of mine who knew I was writing it met her at a networking event in New York City, and she told Heather about me. Mm-hmm. So Heather and I hooked up on Zoom. And, you know, you just never know if you're open to it. There's a lot of support out there.
There is. And, you know, by you telling your story, I mean, this is one of the most powerful ways to connect with others is through our story, through our own experiences. And here's the truth of the matter is it's those experiences that really were difficult and we weren't sure how we were going to come out of. We didn't know how strong we were until we were confronted with that. Those are the stories that allow us to connect at a deep level very quickly.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite stories.
They're the scariest to tell.
Oh, they're so scary to tell.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it feels like, you know, most of the authors who work with me, they'll send me a message that basically says in one way or another, I feel like this could be like the end of me. This could be my ruin. Like, oh my God, if I put this out in the world, I could lose business. I could lose friends. And I get it. I mean, I'm right now writing my own book about having a stillbirth, and I feel it completely like, oh my God, right? I mean, it's no joke. Every chapter, every word is like, oh, okay. You know, it's not easy, but what I like to say too is when we're feeling that, it means we're doing what we haven't done before. Like we are going into this place that is going to allow so much more to open up for us because we have not climbed that summit yet. But there's always people waiting there. There's always people waiting there. I said this on a live I did yesterday. I said, you know, when I first started my business, I had this fear that if I did really well, that I would end up at the top alone. And then what I've learned over the last 10 years is that there's people at every new level. We know that there's new devils or same devil at every level, but guess what? There's new support and there's new people at every level. And I can guarantee you we will never turn the corner and come to a new phase and a new season of our business and not have wonderful people waiting there for us.
Absolutely. And ignore anybody that isn't. It's that simple. Where your, what's that phrase? Like where your energy flows, where your mind, what is that?
So basically,
Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it comes down to focus, right?
Right.
The energy's flowing there. Like if you're focused there, energy's flowing there. It's going to show up. Like if we all said, let's go look for blue Mustangs, we're going to find a blue Mustang because we're focused on it. We're training our mind on what to look for. And that's what I do when I go through a hard time where I receive criticism or whatever, is I literally tell myself, turn your head. Mm-hmm. Turn your head. It's so easy to focus on this, right? Mm-hmm. Turn your head. Put your focus on anything, literally anything, and this will dissipate.
But don't stop.
No.
Like turn your head and like keep going the other way, or don't, look forward and you're right. We do worry, and it comes down to wanting to be liked, which is very human, right? We're pack animals.
Yes.
We want to be with other people. And we're afraid that comes out like in content as very kind of vanilla. And then we don't end up attracting the people that we want to work with. It's just like, meh. Yeah.
It's kind of like lukewarm, Yeah. It's like, who wants a lukewarm beverage? Nobody. Right? I want it cold or I want it hot. Yeah. I don't want it if it's like been sitting on the counter for a couple of hours, And it's so true. And this is what I tell my clients, like when you do a live, when you write a post, when you have a sales call, when you go to a networking event, if you don't feel something when you speak and write, they're not feeling anything either. Mm-hmm. And if there's not deep emotional connection and this isn't happening from two ends, you just kind of get you're probably never going to get the people who are like, I dislike where you stand. But you're also not going to get messages like I get on the regular basis that I want to give some attention to, of women going, oh my God, thank you for saying that. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for teaching this, right? Thank you for showing us the way. Thank you for doing it differently.
Yeah.
You're never going to receive that because you're not taking a stand on anything real.
Yeah. And you're not taking a risk.
No risk.
You're like listening to that part of you that's saying you're in danger when you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you are here to support us. I am here to support you. And I want to thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
You're a powerful woman.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do and for recognizing and supporting other powerful women.
You're welcome. I love it. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day. Do you have any plans?
Well, Derek already took me to brunch, and now I'm going to go play with my babies and make Valentines and eat cupcakes.
Oh, perfect. Well, have a great weekend. Everybody out there, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Let me just, great live to you. So glad I could watch it live. We're glad you could join us. Thanks, Sandra, Eleanor. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Thanks, Adriana. Bye.